bond with people very quickly by asking a few key questions that get people talking. And when you are able to find something in common with people within the first, few questions, then conversation will open up very quickly. So, one thing you can just do when you're cold calling is, hey, where is it that you live? I'm in Florida. Where are you? Well, how long have you lived there? Did you grow up there? Is your family from there? Did you get transferred there? And that opens up the door, and people are going to start telling you, well, we got transferred here, with my company. And then the next question is, well, was this a promotion for you? Were you wanting to move to that area? Did you have family there? So you just ask these questions and very quickly,
Welcome to the Daughter Dearest Podcast with dynamic mother-daughter duo, Simone and Olivia Canego, where they discuss the secrets of transformation and how to build bold confidence and unwavering resilience. From intimate conversations with inspiring guests to sharing their personal journeys of triumph and challenge, Simone and Olivia create a supportive space where every woman is encouraged to rise above her fears and love the woman in the mirror. Tune into the Daughter Dearest Podcast and join this special journey of connection and growth.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Daughter Dearest Podcast. I'm Simone Canego.
And I'm Olivia Canego.
And today we have a special guest joining us, Stacy Harris.
Good morning.
Good morning. Stacy Harris is an entrepreneur, expert business connector. And when I say expert business connector, this is what she does. She is amazing. International speaker and consultant with 20 years of experience, mastering the art of networking and building businesses. She is highly regarded for her insight into building business relationships that take companies to the next level. Stacy lives in the Woodlands, Texas, with her husband of 20 years, Greg, and their 3 cats, Maddie, Max, and Leo. And if we're lucky, we might get to see one of them today.
It is very possible, yes.
So thank you so much for joining us today, Stacy. Stacy.
Thank you for having me. Good to see you.
So we actually have a little bit of a funny story because we tried to do this recording once before and had a few issues with the recording platform we were using. So we've changed over to something different. And this time we're still going to have a great conversation, but we had a great conversation before. We're going to have an even better conversation this time.
Yes, this is part 2.
Yes, part 2. So,
So I feel like because it's part 2, I know all about Stacy, but Stacy, would you share a bit to our listeners about what you do, how you are an expert business connector?
I will. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for having me on and for doing this a second time. And yeah, we're going to have a great time. So like Simone said, I live in the Woodlands, Texas, which is just north of Houston. And I have been an entrepreneur for the last 20 years. I had an image consulting business, was my first business that I did, where I did PR events and for different retail stores, for nonprofits, different things like that. And then I built that business completely through word of mouth because I started it with literally $100 in my business account. So I was head bathroom cleaner, website designer, business card maker, salesperson, the whole 9 yards. And because I didn't have a lot of money to put into marketing, I started networking. It cost me time, but it didn't cost me money. And my world was opened up when a friend invited me to the first networking event that I had ever been to. I've always loved people. I've always loved to talk to people and find out their stories, but I had no idea. I'd come from a teaching background. I had no idea that there were like groups of people that got together just to talk about business, networking groups. And when I walked into that room, it just really changed my world because I found that there was this whole group of people out there who were like me. They were entrepreneurs. A lot of them were early in their journey. A lot of them were in the middle of their journey. A lot of them were coming towards the end. And there was so much to learn from all of those groups. And I built that business strictly through networking, through building relationships and connections. And it changed the course of my business. My business took off. I built a very strong reputation in my community. But more important than that is the relationships. These people have become my friends. And my friends who are like family, and my friends that we have been through thick and thin. The roller coaster of entrepreneurship is real. It is not for the faint of heart. And if you don't have a community around you helping you through that, then life is really, really tough. And these are the people that have been with me on the best days and on the worst days. And so I just found that this love of networking, of connecting people, led me to a business called Network in Action. And I have 5 franchises now with it. And I've been a part of that organization for 8 years, and where I put people into networking groups where they'll have good synergy and be able to send business to one another. And I facilitate the building and the connecting, of those relationships. And that has kind of morphed into the next step of, I've always done a lot of speaking and hosting events and things like that, but really being intentional. I put together a keynote speech that I'm really proud of, that just teaches people how to network effectively and do it in a way that's comfortable for them. So, and then I work with sales teams within corporations on how to do it as well, because networking is, if you're in sales or you're an entrepreneur or solopreneur, networking is going to be a part of it, or it's going to be a lot harder if you don't do it. I mean, not many people like to cold call. So that's kind of the journey I have been on.
Yeah, I would say going to the cold calling, and I know we talked about this last time, but nobody got to hear it, but that is I think it's a really tough thing for people. And I know Olivia definitely does not like it.
No, I hate doing it.
Some people really love it. They love the challenge of it and feed off of it, but there are not a lot of people.
Yeah.
And you really have to be okay with rejection and people saying no time after time after time. It also takes up an immense amount of time in cold calling. For every 100 calls you get, you might get 10 yeses, maybe.
Yeah.
So, with networking, when you can already have a relationship with somebody, when I can call Olivia and say, hey, Olivia, Simone has told me all about you, and I would love to get to know you better. The door is already way more open, just because Olivia likes Simone, Simone likes me. So Olivia's probably going to like me too, and it just opens a lot more doors for you.
Do you feel like it's different? Because between my generation and her generation, so I'm 52, she's 21. So really looking at how we approach things, I never really liked cold calling, but if we're talking about kids who do everything by text or by some weird social app, do you feel like that has a bigger effect now than it used to? Like people are like, I don't want to, I'll send an email, I'll send a text, but I'm not going to call somebody because they don't like calling each other to begin with. Like even their friends, they don't like calling.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. I think that is a challenge. And also, Olivia's generation dealt with, especially in some really formative years, it was COVID, and everybody was so isolated, and just the crazy, like our we all know though, just the whole world changed and the way that we do things, and it's not ever going to go back to what it was, and that's just the reality of it. And so I do find that to be a greater challenge. But what's been really encouraging, I'm working with some students at UT. I've worked with some at A&M, Texas A&M, and then at a local community college here. And what I'm finding is that with Olivia's generation, that once they start to network and start to have those face-to-face or even just over the phone conversations, they're really enjoying it because it's different and it's new. And I think that Olivia, when we're younger, we think we know more than we actually know, and we don't know what we don't know. And so I think that Olivia's age group is a little more apt to just try things, to just try different things. And they don't have the history and baggage that Simone and I have, you and I are.
Yeah.
So there's no history of failure there, or, the fear is not as great. And so I am finding that Olivia's generation, this age group, that once they start doing it, they're really having fun with it and they're enjoying it because it's different. It's not a text message. You get to see people's reactions.
Yeah.
It's not, instead of an emoji, you actually get to see people smile or laugh out loud or, those kinds of things. So it's just being willing to try it. But I find that your generation is really good at networking. They really can be good at it. And it's going to be invaluable for you to find, finding a job as you come upon graduation.
Yes.
It's going to help you find a job. It's going to, once you have that job, it's going to help you get promoted within your company, building those relationships. There's a LinkedIn stat. It's like 88% of people out there, they agree that networking played a part in them being where they are in their careers. 88%.
I believe that 100%. Yeah.
It's huge. So, just goes back to that. It's who you know, not what you know, that is going to pay off. That's going to pay off more. So, but yeah, it is different. It's definitely different, but, there's nothing that can replace the human connection of being able to talk to people or have that face-to-face conversation with them.
So when I look at Olivia, I mean, different than her siblings, but she doesn't really have a problem like calling people in general. So like if I introduce her to someone, she doesn't have a problem calling them, but it's when she doesn't know someone, that's the hardest thing. Yeah, I don't really want to make that call. Yeah. Whereas some of my other kids don't want to call anybody ever.
Well, it's also with cold calling, it is the fact that like you only get like 3 yeses for 100 no.
Yeah.
So that part sucks. Like no one really likes rejection, and it feels really personal when you call them rather than when you're emailing.
Yeah. Yeah. When you are having to do the cold calling, and even in networking, it's the same thing. When you go to a networking event, you walk into a room of people that you don't know anyone. It's that same feeling that you have when you're calling somebody on the phone and you don't know them at all. Mm-hmm. And, one of the best things you can do, and that's the reason a lot of people don't network, or they think that networking doesn't work, is because they don't know how to initiate that conversation. But if you can very quickly, one of the things that I like to teach people is just how to form a bond with people very quickly by asking a few key questions that get people talking. And when you are able to find something in common with people within the first, few questions, then conversation will open up very quickly. So, one thing you can just do when you're cold calling is, hey, where is it that you live? I'm in Florida. Where are you? Well, how long have you lived there? Did you grow up there? Is your family from there? Did you get transferred there? And that opens up the door, and people are going to start telling you, well, we got transferred here, with my company. And then the next question is, well, was this a promotion for you? Were you wanting to move to that area? Did you have family there? So you just ask these questions, and very quickly, and it may be, well, we moved here because we love to ski. We moved to Colorado because we love to ski. Oh, we go to Colorado every winter for family vacation. There's just things like that they get a conversation rolling. It gets people talking. They start telling you about themselves. Mm-hmm. People love to talk about themselves.
Yes, 100% true.
Yeah. So it amazes me. I met a guy one time at a networking event. He had on a golf shirt, and he had on a Masters. It's Masters weekend coming. I don't know if y'all know that, but golf is huge.
Yes.
Yeah. And so he had on a Masters golf shirt, and I just commented to him. I said, have you been to Augusta before? And he goes, oh yeah, my dad has had season tickets for years. This is a father-son thing that we do. And I said, my husband and his dad got to do that a few years ago. And it was just like the highlight of my father-in-law's life. And it was just so amazing. And I said, do you belong to a golf club around here? And he goes, oh yeah, I play out here. Well, it ended up that he and my husband had actually played in tournaments in high school against each other.
Oh, wow.
Well, what I didn't know is that this guy was the head of the region for Edward Jones Financial Services. Wow. Which led to him asking me to come and speak at their next regional meeting.
That's amazing.
So, and it was all because of the logo on his shirt that I happened to ask about. So it's not rocket science. It doesn't have to be these deep, meaningful questions so much. It's just, let me try to find out a little bit about you.
And I feel like it's a lot about the details versus the idea that when I see someone and they say to me, how are you?
Mhm.
I always feel like that is the worst possible question. I'm still guilty of using it, but I kind of feel like that's the worst possible question you can ask someone unless you really want to know. So, and I love using this, but a lot of times people will say, "Oh, I'm fine." Well, what does fine mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's just fine, right? You always have something. So when
Yeah.
someone asks me, I'll tell them like, okay, my day is horrible. Like this is what happened. And I was like, oh, you probably didn't want to know, right? You were just trying to be just a formal thing. Oh, how are you? So what do you think is the best question to ask someone the first time you meet someone?
The first time you meet them?
Yeah.
I think a great thing to ask them is, what have you been up to?
Mm.
What projects are you working on right now? We were talking about, I think before we turned the camera on, is how was your first quarter? Here we are, beginning of second quarter already. It seems like it was just Thanksgiving, and now it's April, and we're past Easter.
Yes.
And hey, how was your first quarter? Did you have any big challenges that you needed to overcome? Did you, so I think a great thing to ask people is, what do you do when you're not working? What are your hobbies? What do you do, when you're not out networking, when you're not at work behind your desk at a computer, what do you like to do in your off time? Things like that. How did you end up at this event? Have you been to this event before? A great thing to do if you walk in somewhere and you don't know anybody and just walk up and you see a group of people, I'll walk up to them and I'll go, okay, I stood on the sidelines trying to figure out who I wanted to talk to because I don't know anybody here, and y'all look like the fun group.
Ah, that's a good one.
I decided to come and join you guys. Can I come and talk to y'all for a few minutes? I'd love to find out more about you. And if people don't let you in when you say something like that, you don't want to talk to them anyway.
Yeah.
You are so right.
I mean, you want to move on to the next group. It's no love lost. So, but that just opens the door, and usually it'll be like, well, yeah, we are the fun group. How could you tell? So it just opens a door like that. It's so simple. And telling people, I don't know anybody. I haven't been here. Have you guys been to this event before? If they say yes, okay, who should I know in the room? Is there anybody here that you think I should meet? This is what I do. These are the kind of people that I would like to connect with while I'm here. And then tell them, I always tell people I have a huge network of people. Tell me who you need to meet, and I will connect you with 2 or 3 of those people while we're standing here. I'll get my phone out and send you a text introducing the 2 of you here. So those things will very quickly endear you to people, and they're going to want to keep talking to you. It leaves them with a warm and fuzzy feeling about you. And it's one of those things, you want people when they think of you to get a smile on their face and say, I just love her.
Yeah.
She was so nice to me. She made me so comfortable. She made me, comments like that.
And I think that's great because I would say that, okay, phone calls are one thing, but walking into a room full of people that you don't know can be overwhelming. And sometimes I was actually writing about this the other day, talking about an event that I went to, and I didn't know anyone. And I know I didn't want to put myself in that situation. I was like, they're not going to want to hang out with me because they're all like, all they do is they wear their fancy dresses, and I'm the jeans and t-shirt kind of girl, and I don't want to change who I am to go to this. And I'm like, why am I even going? And Olivia's like, you have to go. Just go.
You were talking yourself out of it.
I was talking myself. She's like, just go. You're going to have fun. And I did. And I got there and I wore my jeans. I wore a nice blazer, but I wore my jeans and my fancy sneakers, and I met a lot of really nice women, but I didn't have that first, okay, what do I say to people? I mean, I was fine. I knew people there and it was fine. But I think for people walking into a situation where they're unsure of themselves, to have that kind of advice of check out the room, find a group of people, and then say exactly what you said about you look like the fun people. Like, I'm new to this, and I think that really does work, instead of just being awkwardly like, okay, what do I do? Who do I talk to? What do I say? So I think if you prepare yourself, I think that really helps.
It does. It makes a big difference. It really, really does. Yeah. And it just makes it more comfortable, and it makes it easier for everybody to join in conversation. And we have all experienced that feeling of angst.
Mm-hmm.
And it does keep a lot of people from even going to the event. So I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Olivia.
You're welcome.
We all need an Olivia to push us into doing things we don't want to do.
Yeah.
But when you can get past that, then almost always you are going to be glad that you went. You can get something out of it. But it's taken that step and stepping outside of your comfort zone a little bit. But it's also about, I have a whole course that I teach as a 4-part course that's about how to network in a way that is comfortable for you, and finding out what your personality is, and then how can you still network and enjoy it, and it not be such a task, something that fills you with anxiety and dread. And and a lot of it is just being prepared, of knowing when people ask you that question, what do you do, that you know how to tell them what you do. Yeah. It's amazing how many people you talk to that when you ask them that question, they stumble and they stutter and they go in a really roundabout way of actually answering the question. And then when they're finished, sometimes I'll stand there and go, thinking in my head, I still don't know what they do. I don't know. So, but if you go in prepared, knowing, being very confident about who you are, who you serve, what your product or your service is, that is going to make the world a better place. If you're very clear on those, then the next part of it is just doing networking in a way that feels good.
Yeah.
So for somebody like me, I'm an extrovert. I love to talk to people. I feel successful after a networking event when I've talked to as many people as I possibly could in an hour. Hopefully, I've drawn everybody into one big group, because I always say I love it when all my friends play together. I want everybody I know to know each other.
That's so sweet.
So that makes me feel like, to me, that is success. But for somebody who is more introverted, success to them is going to a networking event and having 1, 2, on a really good night, 3 meaningful conversations. That's it. That's their max. And after 45 minutes, they're tapped out and ready to go. I'm going to be there at the beginning and stay until the end in most cases. But that's me. That's for me. But for somebody that networking is, it's harder for them. They're more task oriented and not as much people oriented. They enjoy people, but for a limited time. Then if you can go in and challenge yourself, I'm going to have 2 really good conversations, and then I'm going to leave, and I've been successful. I'm going to allow myself to leave, and I'm not going to beat myself up over it. Even though there's another hour left of the event, then it makes it a lot more enjoyable.
Olivia, what do you do when you go? Because I know you've been going to a bunch of different events and you've met some really cool people, but do you feel like you try to talk to as many people as possible, or do you put yourself off to the side?
I think that I pick out the people that I want to talk to. When I walk into a room, I scout a few safe options and then a few reach options then.
Yeah. Are you doing for job fairs and things like that?
Yeah, job fairs. Yeah, mostly that. But even just for social interactions, I would say I do the same thing. If it's a social interaction where I'm entering alone, I'll try to look for people I know, and then look for the people that I would potentially want to talk to. And then for job fairs, it's similar, but also just, okay, I have a connection to this, a steady one. Let me start with this. Let me get my feet warm, I guess. And then I'll go talk to the challenging options.
Yes. Yeah. As long as you're meeting people and you're talking to people, it's success.
Yeah.
You may not walk away with exactly what you were looking for at the time, but that's the fun thing about networking is you never know who you're going to meet that down the road they're going to make an introduction that's a home run for you, or they're going to job at their company for you. That's where you want to be memorable. You want to make that, you want people to have that warm, fuzzy feeling about you, because if they do, they're going to recommend you for the job.
Yeah.
A friend, those kinds of things. So
exactly.
Yeah. It's about the relationship.
Yeah. And I need to be better about it. I really do. I go to plenty of events, and it's comfortable to just stay with the people that you know and not kind of expand, but I know how important it is to, I mean, if you're trying to build a business or trying to make new friends, whatever you're trying to do, it's so important to be able to get a little uncomfortable in those situations so that you can find more people that you want to be around and that you can have new opportunities with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. I mean, if you can go with a friend or two to an event, because then that way, when you walk in, you're not by yourself. You do, you have somebody there that but then have a little meeting before the meeting and decide how you're going to divide and conquer the room.
Yeah.
Share with each other. Okay, Olivia, tonight I really am looking to meet commercial realtors, insurance people, whatever it is, business attorneys. So if you come across any of those people, let me know. Bring me over to the conversation, or you bring them to me, and I'll take it from there. But that's a great way, because if Olivia is talking to somebody and they're a business attorney and she is walking them over to me and she tells the business attorney, I'm going to introduce you to my friend Stacy. She's looking to meet people that do what you do. She's a lot of fun. She knows a ton of people. She has these networking groups where she likes to connect people. I can't wait for you to meet her. Then you've built me up in that person's mind already. And they're coming over with a very open mind, most likely, to us having a good conversation. And it just makes it a lot easier. And then I'm on the lookout for the people that you're looking to meet too. And then you end up meeting twice as many people that way.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. I think that I've been in situations, though, where people have gone in together and they've only stuck with each other. So I'd say in that, make sure you're going in for the right reasons still. Like, don't go to a networking event just to talk to your friend. Because I've been in situations like that, and it just ruins not only the experience for you, but for others as well, because you come off as kind of too hard to talk to.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's part of the meeting before the meeting, is have a goal.
100%.
I'm okay, Olivia, I promised myself I'm going to meet 3 new people tonight, and I'm going to walk away with 3 business cards of, I'm going to reach out to these people after and set up coffee with them, invite them to, whatever. So when we get in there, we'll walk in together. And then once we kind of get settled, I'm going to go over to this side and you go work this part of the room. And then we'll meet up halfway through, compare notes, and then we're going to divide and conquer again. So, let the people that you're going with know this is what I'm going to do. But I'm here if you need me.
Yeah.
If you feel lost, if you feel alone, you can always come and join the conversation that I'm in, and vice versa. And it makes it a lot easier.
I need to bring more friends with me when I do these kinds of things. Then.
You really should. It makes it a lot more fun. Yeah. It really does. And then reward yourself. Like, okay, we're going to go to this happy hour. And then when it's over, we're going to go and have dinner. Just us. And then that you can visit and you can debrief after that.
Well, it's like having a wingman. Like,
that's it, exactly.
You're picking up people.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Yep.
So deeper into the networking piece, obviously you're building connection, you're building a community. One of the things we like to talk about on this podcast is our struggles, and we all struggle, but obviously when you have these connections, when you have a community, it really does lighten the load. So I'd love to hear about a time where, and this goes beyond networking, right? Because you network to meet people, and when you meet people, you make connections, and then your connections can turn into your community. So a time where that was critical in something that you were going through in your life. I'd like to hear more about a situation like that, because I think it'll really help people understand that networking isn't just a business thing, right? It's a whole life thing.
Right. Yeah. I think sometimes I will answer your question, but I just want to say, I think, sometimes we forget that businesses are people.
Yes.
Everything is about people. And sometimes we forget that, and we get so focused on making the sale, hitting the target, making this goal, that we forget that we can leave a path of destruction behind us if we're not careful with the people that are a part of the business, that make the business. And so, to answer your question, for me, this was just such a crazy thing. It was in 2018 and beginning of 2018. And my husband, Greg, was on a business trip in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And so, like I said, we're in the Houston area. So Baton Rouge is about 6 hours away. And I had talked to him at 5:30 in the evening, and we had checked in, and he said, I got good news. I'm coming home a day early instead of Friday. I'm coming home Thursday. And this is Wednesday evening. And 4 hours later, I got a call from the emergency room at Baton Rouge General Hospital. And the emergency room nurse was using Greg's cell phone. So when I picked up the phone, I thought it was him. And there's a lady on there, and she said, "Is this Mrs. Harris?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Your husband Greg came into the ER. He collapsed in the ER. We took him back, did a CT scan, and he is suffering from an abdominal aortic aneurysm. In fact, he has 3 aneurysms in between his heart and the curve. So the aorta goes into the heart, and it comes out like this, and it makes a 90-degree turn. It goes all the way down to the pelvic area, and the aorta feeds every organ and limb in the body. And so he had 3 aneurysms that were lined up around this area. And one of them had gotten stuck in the curve of the aorta, which had caused the aorta to dissect and to come apart. The layers of the aorta had pulled apart. So he was bleeding internally. And they were trying to keep these aneurysms from going to the heart. And so 2 of them dissolved on their own, but this one that was stuck did not. And her next words to me were, "You need to get here as fast as you can, get your affairs in order. He probably won't make it through the night."
Jeez Louise.
And so, it's just like all of a sudden the world turns upside down. And so I got everything together as best I could, and I got on a plane. We were in the middle of a horrific thunderstorm, 40-mile-an-hour winds, hail, wind, flight got delayed. It was nightmare, So I finally got on a plane about 5 o'clock in the morning. And I landed in Baton Rouge, and I was on the phone with one of my best friends, and just said, "Hey, I made it. I'm here." And she goes, "Stacy, how are you?" And I said, "I feel so panicked right now, because not just because of the situation, but because I don't know anybody here. I am so used to knowing people where I live, and if I need something, I know who to call, and if I don't know, I know who to call that knows them." And I said, "I feel so alone at this moment." And so I just said, "I'll call you when I get to the hospital. I'll update you later." I hung up the phone with her, and all these text messages had come in that I hadn't looked at yet. Well, I'd been on the plane and everything, and the word was getting out, what was going on. And I looked down at my phone, and I can't even tell you, there had to be 20 or 30 text messages. And this is at like 6:30 in the morning from people. And they all were something like, "My sister lives in Baton Rouge. She lives 5 minutes from the hospital. Here's her name and number. You call her if you need anything. Yeah. My roommate in college lives in Baton Rouge. My uncle is in Baton Rouge." It was just, and all of a sudden, my network had given me a network for where I was. And that feeling of aloneness just, so completely. And so, I got to the hospital, and Greg was struggling. He was in critical condition. There was not a surgeon in the state that was qualified to do the surgery that he needed to have. And after 3 days, they were still not able to get him stabilized. The aorta was continuing to tear this entire time. But they wouldn't, Houston is the cardiothoracic capital of the world. The number 1 aortic surgeon in the world is actually here downtown. But the hospital in Baton Rouge would not let me move him because they were afraid we couldn't care flight him because of the aneurysms. They were afraid they would rupture in the air pressure changes. So the only option was critical care ambulance, and it's a 6.5-hour drive. Oh. And they were afraid that he was going to die on the way because he was still so unstable. And so it became this battle between me and the hospital of, "You've got to let us go. I have to get him home." And they were worried about liability, is what it was. So I finally had this conversation with the critical care doctor of, "What do I have to do to get you to let him go?" And he basically told me, you don't have enough power," is what he told me. That's what he said. "You don't have enough power. You don't have what it takes to make this happen. You're going to have to find a receiving hospital and a receiving surgeon and a cardiologist that's willing to take him on, and a critical care ambulance company that is willing to take the risk of moving him from point A to point B. And if you take him without all of these things, then I will not sign off on it. And if I don't sign off on it, then insurance isn't going to cover any of the medical care that he's had so far. And we had easily $500,000 in bills already at that point, that we had run up. So I remember looking at him. I was pretty ticked, and I looked at him and I just said, "You don't know who I am, and you don't know who I know, and we're leaving tomorrow." And he goes, "Well, I don't know how you think you're going to do that." And I said, "Well, we are, I'm telling you." So, this is pretty late at night at this point, and I go downstairs. Before I left the hospital room, Greg looked at me and he just said, "Stacy, I can't do this much longer. I can't last much longer." And he was in just such horrific pain. And I said, "Sweetheart, we're going to go home tomorrow." And he said, how are you going to do that? And I said, "I'm not sure yet, but I'm going to. It's going to happen. I'm just telling you." And so I left Greg's room. I went downstairs. I was too tired to make it to my car. I stopped in the lobby area and just sat down and rested. I pulled my phone out. I went onto Facebook, and to that point in time, I had always just put business oriented things on Facebook. It was never about personal stuff. And but I went on there and just said, "Hey, if you haven't heard what's going on, this is what is happening. And you guys know that I'm not one to put personal things out there, but we are in a literal life and death situation. And I'm asking for everyone to pray for Greg for this situation. And but most of all, these are the things that I need." And I actually made a list that the critical care doctor had given me of all the things that we had to do to get his permission, for us to take Greg and bring him home. And I put the list out there, and I said, "If any of you out there can help us with any of these things, please let me know." And that was about 10 o'clock at night. I went back to the hotel. I just collapsed into bed. And I woke up a few hours later. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I got my phone out, looked at Facebook. I had all of these messages. I mean, just probably over 100 messages at that point. And the very first message that had come in was from the wife of the very first business coach that I had hired when I started my first business here in this area. And I had met him through a networking group. And she and I were friends on Facebook, and she just said, "Stacy, call me. I can help." And all of a sudden it hit me. Cheryl is the second in command at Woodlands Methodist Hospital. Like, I hadn't even, my brain was so foggy. I just, I knew a lot of people, but I couldn't even think of who I needed to talk to at the time. So I waited a couple of hours. It was a Saturday morning, and I waited a couple hours, and I called her. And Cheryl is also a nurse. And so I filled her in on what was going on. And she said, I need you to put me through to the hospital admin. Can you do a 3-way call? And I said, yes. And so we did. And I am not kidding. In less than 15 minutes, Cheryl had gotten a room for us. She told the admin, "Greg Harris is now in room 2001 at Woodlands Methodist Hospital in the critical care unit. This is his this is his cardiologist. This is his surgeon. And we are waiting, and this is what we need to do, X, Y, and Z." And the admin was like, okay. And it was just amazing, y'all. And then one of my really good friends, also, one of my networking action members, she had found a critical care ambulance company that agreed to move him and take the risk of moving him from Baton Rouge to here. Another friend had gotten us in touch with, she was a doctor, the very first networking event I ever went to. So that networking event that I mentioned that changed my life, she was at this event. She is a doctor in Huntsville, which is about 45 minutes north of where we are. And she knew the #1 aortic surgeon in the world at the med center and put us in touch with him. And that is who ultimately did Greg's surgery. Greg ended up being part of a clinical trial that was much less invasive than what the normal surgery would be. I was a part of other networking groups, and, just the cost of all this, like just the cost of moving him with the critical care ambulance company, that is not something insurance will cover. That was $10,000. out of pocket. I mean, we were just like hemorrhaging money, at the time, trying to take care of all of this. And they went together and they collected enough money. We had a $6,000 deductible on our insurance. They collected $6,000 and which paid our deductible on our insurance, and brought meals. Several of my members, they took over my business for me for 6 weeks. And I literally stepped out of my business for 6 weeks, and 4 people ran it for me, and took turns doing the things that I would normally have been doing. And when I stepped back into my business, I was just able to pick up and move on from where they had left off. And I had people that they would come, we would have our business meetings in the critical care lobby, in the waiting room, and they would come to me. It was just so amazing, you guys. And when I just look back and, in the whole chess game of life, at the people that God had put in my path over that, this was 6 years ago. So we'd been here 14 years. And in that 14 years time, all the people that I'd met, it went back to the first year that I lived here. These relationships that I had developed. And they were all there when I needed them. And I never in a million years dreamed these people that I was networking with, building businesses with, supporting and encouraging, and then doing the same for me, that one day it would ultimately lead to them saving my husband's life. And it was just nothing short of a miracle, truly. And, it's just amazing what people can do when you know the right people, and how they can pull together and move mountains that I would never have been able to move by myself.
Such an incredible story, and gave me chills, but also just thinking about not wanting to walk into a networking event or into an event and then really thinking about the possibilities, that it's not just about in that moment, but how different your future could be because of the people that you meet on that day.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And to me, that's what's so fun about networking, because you never know who you're going to meet and how they're going to change the course of your life and of your business. I mean, it's like the day you met your spouse or your best friend, or the person that ended up hiring you and giving you your first job, or, it just takes one person to completely change where you are, where you're going, and you never know who that is going to be and where those relationships are going to lead. And I mean, like I said, I could never have dreamed of those things happening, and I remember at one point Greg saying to me, like, how are we going to repay these people? Like these people that collected money and they paid our insurance deductible. Like, what are we going to do? How are we going to repay them? And I just looked at him and I said, you know what, sweetheart, the bill is already paid. These are people that, this has been a mutual thing. We have been loving and supporting each other. And these are people that we've been through good times and bad times together. And when they've had difficulties, I've supported them. And this was their turn. And we don't owe anybody anything. This is what the relationship part of it is. He's always been a corporate guy where you don't have relationships like this. And so that was really eye-opening, for him too. But such a blessing. I mean, I'm so thankful. And he lives he still has challenges, but he lives a very normal life for the most part. And we're so blessed to have had this time together. And less than 1% of people survive what he had.
That's unbelievable.
Really,
it's really an unbelievable story. And I do think about that a lot of times, that when people offer help, they do it because they want to. They're not looking for something in return. They're not, you get me later. I mean, there is that thing of pay it forward, which I think that we should all live our lives in a way that do something nice for someone else whenever you can. But it's never about the money. It's never about that, oh, now I owe you because you did something for me. It's really about being a good person. So I really resonate with that story. It's so powerful.
Yeah. So that was my challenge.
Yeah. That is a big one. That's a big one. For sure. We ask a lot of people this question, and so we get some things like, social media, overwhelm of social media, that kind of stuff. So this one is like this is a big story. So yes. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So we've we've kind of spent a lot of time on the networking piece, and
Yeah.
so, which is such an important thing, obviously. But is there a woman in your life that has inspired you?
Yes. There's so many. I mean, my mom and I are extremely close. And she has been such a huge support for me in the entrepreneur journey. And she went to work later in life. I was in high school, about to graduate, and my dad is a minister and has been for 54 years now.
Wow.
But she had, being a preacher's wife is pretty much a full-time job, and that was pretty much all she had done. But when I was getting ready to go off to college, she and my dad really, I was very fortunate. They wanted to pay for my education. They didn't want me to have to work and have the stress of that on me. And so she decided to go back to work. And so, it was later, and she was in her early 40s when she went back to work, and she worked her way up the corporate ladder. She got into retail sales, furniture, ended up going to work for Haverty's Furniture, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. And so she worked her way up to the very top in the corporate office, and she was the troubleshooter. She was the one that they sent to any store on the East Coast that was struggling, and retired just with an incredibly successful career.
Yeah.
And it was because of the way that she builds relationships. And so she has really inspired me, and she is my biggest cheerleader by far, in helping me on those days when you get discouraged and things aren't going the way you want them to go, and you're not meeting the goals, or, that kind of thing. She has always kept me going. And there's another lady who, she is 83 years old. Her name is Lucille Hutton. And she is a stage 4. At the age of 79, she was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And she survived. She had the surgery, which very few people are even able to do the surgery on. I've known Lucille for about 15 years now, and she is the most positive person. Like, from the moment she got the diagnosis, and she told me the next words out of her mouth were, "Stacy, I'm going to beat this. Don't worry about me. I'm going to beat this." And that is what she would say. I would go to doctor's appointments with she and her husband. I helped care for her a little bit when they brought her home from the hospital, and she had a scar that it looked like a shark bite.
Wow.
They opened it basically from one side of her rib cage across to the other side. And she was so sick, and but she just continued. I mean, every time I would talk to her, she would just say, "This is not going to beat me. I'm going to beat this. I'm going to beat this." In the midst of it, they continued to run their business. They had a residential cleaning service, and she and her husband continued to love on their employees, run their business. And she would sit in they would make all their meetings. They would make it a conference call where she could sit in and put in her 2 cents and make suggestions and encourage employees and all of those kinds of things. And so she is just like a warrior to me, and I love her so much. So there's so many wonderful women in my life. There really are, but my mom and Lucille, they like stand out above them.
Yeah.
And before we wrap up, what is one thing your mom told you where she was wrong?
I really am allergic to green beans.
That is hilarious.
That is not what I was expecting you to say.
Not at all, but I love that answer.
I love that.
Yeah, so we had this ongoing battle when I was a kid that I kept telling her green beans made me sick, and she was like, "No, they don't." And it was one of these, "You're not getting that from the table or eating anything else until you eat your green beans." And then I had allergy testing, and I really am allergic to them. So
that's awesome.
I mean, not awesome that you're allergic to them, but
it's okay because I don't really like them anyway.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I think everybody can relate to that, like that idea of like, I'm not going to eat my green beans, or I'm not going to eat my Brussels sprouts, or whatever it is. And so your mom's like, "Yes, you are. You're not allergic to it, or you're fine.
It's good for you. It's good for you. It's
good for you. It's so healthy."
Yeah, that's the only thing my mom has ever been wrong about. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. So we usually wrap up with Olivia reading from her special calendar. She has a quote of the day. It's actually called the Unfuck Yourself calendar. So, and it is it always has really strong messages. So we usually read that, and let's see what it has to say today.
I love it.
Okay. What can we do to get unstuck? Stop the striving and struggling for starters and just accept where you are. Be here for the moment, this moment.
I think that's a good one, because it's true with that we're always, and I feel like that right now on my journey, that I'm like, okay, what's next, instead of enjoy the now. And that's why I said this thing before we were talking, before we started recording, and that in terms of speaking engagements, like the summer is low time and like enjoy it instead of stressing about it. And I think we all do that to ourselves in different parts of our lives, where we put so much pressure on ourselves instead of just enjoying the moment.
Yeah. I heard a speaker say one time, these are the good old days. Like
That's
what we're in right now is what we're going to look back at one point and go, those were the good old days. Like when we think about before COVID, those were the good old days. You know, we didn't know it. We didn't know it. So
well, that's great.
Yeah, being present.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm glad we got through the whole episode. Yay.
We have jumped over some hurdles that the audience doesn't even know about, but we did it.
We did it.
Exactly.
We made it through to the end. So
thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Of course.
So please
thank you for coming.
We're going to have people, things that all the information in our show notes, but where can people find you? What's the best way for them to reach out to you and learn more about you?
Yes. So the best way is if you will go to my website, and it is Stacy, STACY, harrisconsulting.com. So just stacyharrisconsulting.com. And I would love to answer any questions that people have about networking, anything that I can do to help people do this successfully with less angst and worry and stress and tension. I would love that. You can book a free 30-minute discovery call with me, and we'll just chat and get to know each other. If I can help you, I will absolutely tell you what I can do to help. And if I can't, then I will find somebody, if I don't already know them, that can help you with whatever it is that you're challenged with at the moment. But if you sign up for my email list, you can sign up for my email list on the website, and I will send you a series of videos that I've done on my top 7 networking secrets. And they're all just 2 minutes long or less. And they're just real quick little sound bites of things that I have found about networking that I like to share with people, just to make it a little bit easier. So if you'll go to my website, I would love for us to communicate. You're not committing to anything. Like I said, if you sign up for the email list, I'll send you the video series. I'd love to share that and get the info out there on that.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us. This was so fun. I can't wait to see you in person. Well, it's not going to be this month, but hopefully soon.
I know. I hope this summer. Hopefully we can get together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Olivia, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you so much. It was great to have you on.
Thank you. So good to see you guys.
Yeah. And thanks everyone for joining us on this episode of the Daughter Dearest podcast. And we will see you next time. Have a great day.
Guys.
Thank you for listening to the Daughter Dearest podcast with Simone and Olivia Canego. We hope this episode has made your day just a little bit brighter and given you the inspiration you need to confidently go about your week. Always remember to be authentically you. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And feel free to connect with them on Instagram at Daughter Dearest Podcast, at Simone Canego, and at Olivia Canego. Till next time.